the second round of the series, the World Enduro Championship moved to the north of Portugal and the city of Guimaraes. This is an important regional centre with a population nearing 150,000 inhabitants, and its architecture displays a mix of modernity and tradition. Plenty of evidence of medieval Portugal can still be found in its fortified historic district and city squares. The Guimaraes region is located between Porto and the Spanish border. The surrounding countryside with its steep paths and the pervading aroma of its eucalyptus trees is a dream locale for off-road motorcycling. In late March 2004, it hosted the 110 best enduro riders in the world, ready to tackle a lap of 51 kilometres that would be covered 3 times each day. The lap contained 4 special stages, with one of these being rated as extreme. Obviously, the Portuguese crowd was all behind one man, Helder Rodrigues. The 25-year-old KTM rider won the 125 class at the 2003 International 6 Days Enduro in Brazil and is the standard bearer for Portuguese enduro racing. Despite a flourishing national championship, Portuguese riders do not often compete beyond their own borders. For 2 years, Helder has been the lone WEC contestant from Portugal, but in that time has established himself as a genuine candidate for the Enduro 1 title. Despite all his efforts, however, the Portuguese rider was not able to live up to the expectations of his fans on day 1. After the day's 10 timed sections, he found himself in 7th place, 1 minute and 22 seconds behind the leader. Finland's Petteri Silvan posted the best time in the Extreme Special, but was far too inconsistent at the start of the day. In Spain the previous week, he finished on the podium on each of the 2 days. In Portugal, the Finn could only manage 6th place after the first round action. Richard Larsson is the man that the Italian constructor TM is pinning all their hopes on this season, and the Swedish rider fought all day for a podium result. His efforts seemed likely to be rewarded until the final motocross special test of the day. Larsson could do no better than 15th in this test and had to settle for a rather disappointing 5th on the day. The Enduro 1 category is probably the most hotly contested class in the WEC as far as podium positions is concerned, and this is how it played out on the first day in Portugal. Well in contention was Poland's Bartosz Obluki. He finished 4th and would most likely have made the podium apart from a slow start to the day when he lost 6 seconds to the leaders on the first special stage. Third on the day was Marc Germain. This was the first podium for a French rider in the 2004 season. Unfortunately, France's highest-placed finisher will not be continuing on the WE Series as the World Championship is not part of Yamaha France's plans. The National Championship is the team's priority. Simone Albergoni has the full support of Italy's HM Zanardo team, however, and repaid that commitment in Portugal as he took 2nd place in Enduro 1. Albergoni, Germain, Obluki and Larsson, the 4 men separated by just 8 seconds. Simone Albergoni has all the expectations of the Italian fans on his shoulders, who still search for the new star after the golden era of Gio Sala and Mario Rinaldi. The Italian media have dubbed Simone the little prince of Italian enduro racing. The title that suits him fine, even though he's still very much in the shadow of an even more compact rider, the king of enduro, Stefan Merriman. It was quite frankly impossible to beat the Australian on the first day in Portugal. From the 10 special stages, he clocked the best time in 7 of them. This was despite several falls in both the tests and on the liaison sections. Falls or not, he put in times much quicker than the competition, sometimes as many as 10 seconds faster than the next man on a single stage. Merriman ended the day 40 seconds ahead of Albagoni and a further 3 seconds clear of Germain. Even in the heart of the Portuguese countryside, one cannot get around the rules of the WEC. New Zealand rider Paul Wilby found this out when he was disqualified from the Enduro 2 competition for receiving unauthorised assistance on one of the hill climbs. His boss and teammate in the Fast Eddie racing team, Paul Edmondson, knows the rules like the back of his hand, and he had no such problem. And he didn't have any particular problem with the climbs either, although a few minor difficulties in the second Enduro test did cost him 10 seconds. He finished the day in 5th place. Mika Sarenkoski in the background was 4th in Enduro 2, where we remind you that 252 strokes and the 454 strokes race together. The riders in Enduro 2 class had the task of running first on the track all weekend long, because the WEC has established a sensible rule whereby the starting order of the classes changes for each round. Arno Villanova starred in Spain with 2 podium results, but very few thought he had a chance to repeat that kind of performance outside the borders of his home country. The Catalan silenced the detractors with a strong 3rd place in the class. The number 2 was Alessandro Botturi's number when he played for the Brescia Rugby Club, and it was also his finishing spot on Saturday. The Italian rider was runner-up in the day's stages with impressive regularity, clocking the 2nd best time on no less than 6 of them. When it comes to regularity, however, no one could do better than Juha Salminen. Not only was the Finn an easy Enduro 2 winner on the day, but he also set a WEC record by winning all 10 special stages. Enduro 3 is the category for the biggest displacements for both the 2- and 4-stroke engine types. In a continuation of the Spanish results, the Finnish rider from the Husaberg team, Marko Tarkala, was 5th in the class. Fourth-placed Finn Samuli Aro was the big loser of the day after stalling his big KTM. The bike's electric starter had been removed to reduce weight, and the Finn had to spend quite a while trying to get the bike going with the kickstarter. Aro persisted and eventually got going, but he lost 20 seconds in this stage alone and saw any chance of victory disappear. A third Finn in the top 6 was Husqvarna's Mika Ahola. He gave the Italian constructor their first podium result of the season after taking advantage of Aro's misfortunes. And Aro was only 16 seconds off the winner's pace. Even closer and second on the opening day in Portugal was David Knight. The Englishman showed some impressive skills in the specials, particularly the ease with which he conquered the tricky surfaces on many of the hill climbs. Look closely at the riding lesson he gives his rivals on this rocky stage. There were those who thought that the motocross portion of the previous Spanish event had been laid out specifically to suit the skills of Ivan Cervantes and give him an unfair advantage. On this very difficult Portuguese terrain, he showed that his skills are wide-ranging and that he doesn't need any outside help. Not only that, he revealed the depth of his dedication and training routines. Ivan had worked very specifically on his hill climbing techniques, riding in quiet secrecy on specially laid out sections near his home. And the results were there for all to see. Another rider who works hard on constantly improving his technique is Stefan Merriman. He originally came from Australia to ride a Husqvarna in the WEC and then switched to Honda for 2003. In that year's international 6 days enduro, he was the only rider to consistently challenge the overall winner, the 7-time world motocross champion and Yamaha rider Stefan. Almost certainly that's why Merriman is now riding one of the blue Yamaha WR250 4-strokes in Enduro 1. He's a favourite for the world title, but still reckons that he can improve his riding technique. Initially, Stefan was a trials rider, but you can't ride standing on the foot pegs all day long without getting exhausted. So Stefan is still working on a more motocross style of riding, sitting down more in the turns. He reckons that it pays off in terms of control in certain situations.
Yeah, in the beginning, because I came from trials and I was always used to standing up everywhere, just never sit down. To sit down feel very uncomfortable for me, so I started just like this, and then many times crash. Standing up, I crash all the time, because when you sit down, you can put the foot and save it and maybe recover. So over the years, you know, the last few years training, I've tried to learn to sit a lot more with the ruts and learn to sit. It's better, you know, a lot of the time in the corner, but it's difficult for me, and getting better and better at it.
Former world champion Peter Bergvall rode a Yamaha last year, but has switched to Husqvarna for 2004. He's still getting used to the new bike, but took a solid 8th place in Enduro 1 on that second day in Portugal. Seventh was TM's Italian rider Alessio Paoli, despite eating some dirt en route. Just ahead of him was his Swedish teammate Richard Larsson, while Portuguese favourite Helder Rodrigues delighted the local crowds by moving up 2 places to 5th. The young Polish Yamaha team rider Bartosz Obluki kept himself in contention among the championship leaders by finishing 4th. But it was his close rival, the young Honda-mounted Italian Simone Albergoni, who pushed him out of a place on the podium. Second, ahead of Albergoni, was Petteri Silvan, but once again they all had to give best to Stefan Merriman. The Australian led the championship standings after 2 rounds by 12 points from Albergoni. Then came Silvan, Obluki and Germain. New Zealander Paul Wilby had been disqualified from the Enduro 2 standings on day 1 for receiving unauthorised assistance, but he proved that he'd learned his lesson by taking his fast Eddie Honda to a fine 3rd place on the 2nd day. Ahead of Wilby was Spain's Arno Villanova, while third place went to Alessandro Batturi of the Italian KTM Farioli team. It was a good day for the Fast Eddie Honda squad, as team owner and former world champion Paul Edmondson took second place on the podium.
Obviously I'm very happy, really pleased to be on the podium. It's the first time this season, and I'm just happy because I've built a team and it's obviously working. So, you know, to be here at the World Championship and to be second position today, it's fantastic.
But on the top step, as usual, was the unstoppable Finn, Juha Salminen. Not surprisingly, this gave Salminen a comfortable 8-point lead in the championship table over Arno Villanova. Then came Batturi, Edmondson and Mika Sarenkoski. In the big bike wars of Enduro 3, it was another Mika, Husqvarna's Mika Ahola, who ended up 6th in Portugal on day 2. His teammate and another former world champion, Anders Eriksson, was just ahead of him. Rugged Manxman David Knight put in another solid ride to 4th place. He's riding a KTM 525 for the Cumbrian D3 racing team in 2004, having switched from Yamaha. The big KTM thumper certainly seems to suit his hard-riding style. Husaberg's main challenger for honours in 2004 is Marco Tarkala, and he kept up his challenge with a 3rd on day 2 in Portugal behind the KTM riders Samuli Aro and Ivan Cervantes. And after Portugal, it was Cervantes at the top of the points table, from Aro, Knight, Tarkala and Ahola.
I used to do something at home also when we got the babies, and I said my wife that, okay, I can cook the food, and that's the way that it came to my hobby, to cook.
Bacalhau, no?
Bacalhau, no.
You had good results today. It's time to open beer.
Yes. I already took 1 or 2, or I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, we will see later. Of course.